Hello friends, welcome back for part 11 of our walkthrough of Oxygen Not Included Spaced Out. Let's talk about a couple things from the last video, one of which is this is what our completed power setup looks like. I just kind of walled everything off and just made one door, so if my duplicates need to go in and out of here, they definitely can. But I'm not just going to keep it open to open air because this is going to be an area that I want to keep cool. It'll be producing a lot of carbon dioxide and all kinds of stuff that I'd rather just keep in there, so yeah. Oh, also, someone was very upset about me leaving my bleach stone out, so there you go! How angry are you now? Ha ha ha! I just don't think it's worthwhile spending the time putting all the bleach stone underwater. I'm not really going to use it in this run either, and I'd rather have the chlorine in my tanks down here, so anyway, yeah, I just wanted to do that. Alright, anyway. So yeah, we got that done. I'm going to also put a couple of gas pumps in here like I am showing. And those gas pumps are just going to be put on an Atmos sensor to make sure that we are only pumping this out if it's pretty highly pressurized. I'm going to say like 3,000 grams per tile. It'll eventually be getting very compressed in here as we turn on our petroleum generators and natural gas generators and stuff. And then I usually will like to put stuff on a filter gate. It doesn't need to be a ton, just like 30 seconds or so is totally fine. I have two pumps here only because when those petroleum generators fire up, it's going to produce a comical amount of carbon dioxide. So I need two of these pumps to really handle that if we do get to that point, but I'm going to try to avoid that if I can. I just recommend doing this in case you have your own setup that looks like this. Okay, sorry, let me check my notes. I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, one more thing is we're refilling some tanks for oxygen here. So I did create another setup down here and another one right here. I'm just going to leave this one alone. I wanted to spread this out a little bit more so I could get more air pressure towards the bottom of my base to start pushing the air down to help make this a little bit more oxygen rich, because it's not that great down here. It's great up here, but down here I want it to be more. I'm eventually going to move this water too, which we may cover in this video, I'm not sure. Alright, so one of the concerns that we have right now is as we've done a bunch of shipping and as we've used our rock crusher and a bunch of other things, some of my food stopped growing because it's too hot. And this is also going to be producing quite a bit of heat, and it's also kind of like stuck in its own little room. So we need some cooling of some sort, so let's do that next. So one thing that you can take advantage of is all the material out here is extremely cold. And I'm going to take advantage of that by creating a couple of small setups that are over here to help me cool things. So first thing I'm going to do is just create a room. It's going to be kind of like an ice box, just to contain a whole bunch of ice that I normally want to use for cooling, and that I can set up with some automation to make it easier to kind of move it around. I'm also going to need to ship the ice out of this biome. I'm just going to ship some of it that's right here, and kind of send it through this biome and into my freezer. So I'll just kind of put it like this, create a little bit of space, and then the ice is all just going to kind of collect in here and sit on the ground. I can also ship it from over here, too, so I might just set up a couple of lines. If I need to ship it, I'd rather ship it through the walls, so I'm not losing as much temperature as I can hold on to from this ice. So this is our little freezer room that we got here. Just going to create a conveyor chute to have it all drop off, an auto sweeper for when I want it to be shipped out somewhere, and a conveyor loader, which we've seen many times by now. Just want to have a setup that looks kind of like this. Let's also, actually, it's the easiest way to get this out. I'm just going to use my bins that I have here. Anytime that I want something swept on the map, and I'm not going to do this a lot, just occasionally if I need to move something, and I want to just put it in my shipping network, I'll mark these for sweep in the same locations as where, oh, storm hatches are done, as the same location as where everything else is getting shipped. And if I need to sweep something, my duplicates will just grab it, they'll run it over here, and they'll drop it off at the same place. Again, I'm not going to be doing sweeping en masse. I'd rather have shipping do that work for me, but sometimes it's like, I'm going to have a very specific destination for this stuff. I'm not going to send this back to my normal areas. That's why I want to move this stuff out of the way. Hook this up to some conductive wire. Once again, I don't want to have to crack this open later if I don't have to, so I'd rather do that. We'll set up some shipping over in here. So if I want to set up something that's specifically for getting this ice, I'm just going to have its own bin that is just to request ice and send it over there. Same thing with this one. We're just going to kind of ship all of it to one place. And I'm not too worried about taking too much coolant out of this area because we're going to mine this out pretty soon anyway to get on solar power. But I'm only going to be taking the regular ice from here because there's like still polluted ice and igneous rock and all kinds of stuff that's still really cold. I also will still want to ship out the copper. So the copper that I get, I'm probably just going to line through my cooling setup just to give the temperature to that water before I ship it to my main area. So I'm going to get coolant from a couple of different sources by doing this. So yeah, we'll get it all set up. All right, so what gets shipped out of here is just going to go straight into that. This one is also just going to get shipped right along the ground here. Again, I'm being careful by not sending it through any of the natural tiles so I don't uproot my sleet wheat by accident, because that's really kind of counter to what we want to do right now. Set up some power for this, nothing too wild. Set up some power to the other one. I'm skipping this gravitas shipping container like I mentioned. I think I mentioned this. Just going to not pay attention to a bunch of the story traits in this one, only because they're really not necessary to completing the game. This one in particular is just kind of like a for funsies type of thing, so I'll talk about it later. Let's see, that's going to be our bin for ice. If I want to ship anything else out, I'm just going to create a second bin. And I'm not going to ship everything out. I'm only going to ship the stuff out that I know I really want. In particular, the copper. This is one of the better sources on the map for copper. And if I'm going to ship out my copper, I want to ship it somewhere that's going to help me cool things down that are going to need cooling. Oh, let me add these tiles back. Yeah, so I'm going to create a setup here that is just to hold some cold water. This is going to be kind of the central point of our early game cooling. So I make some mistakes all over the place. So let me get this all set up. Get this door out of the way. Then in here, I'm going to create a couple of smart storage bins. These are going to be a little more useful than the regular ones because these will send automation signals. So I will know when these don't have any contents in them anymore. And when I don't have any contents, I'm going to have this conveyor loader activate and ship some stuff down for me. So that'll be the plan there. The other thing this is going to do is this will slowly produce water. So I want to pump out the extra water that I get and send it back into my normal water system. But the other thing too is we kind of want a place for all this water to collect. So I'm going to also create my water setup at the same time. I'm just going to create something like this. Actually, I do want this to be 2 tiles thick. So let me do it down here. I'll delete all of the deodorizers that are in the way. Get rid of some of our shipping lines. We don't need them anymore. And just create some ladders down like this. Our water system is going to be very similar to the prior one on the base game walkthrough, but basically I'm going to use a lot of liquid reservoirs, only so that I can move my water around without having to pay the expense of power if I don't have to. So I'm just going to do a line of those like that. At the very end, just going to do a liquid pump because I will be dumping any excess water into here. But I'd ideally like it to just go into these reservoirs and then flow back out of the reservoirs if I can help it. So yeah, the way that I'm going to have stuff going into this, which we will need to reset this up in some way. Let me disconnect our water sieve here really quickly because this is going to be like outlet water. Let's see, this is in the way too. I'm not even really using this anymore, so let me deconstruct that. Because this is going to be outlet water, all we want it to do is just come down. Actually, it could just go down like this. And into all these tanks in a straight line like that. And then the water that I want to come out should come out the same direction and then go through my pump last. So that will be like, if I need water, I will grab water from these tanks first, and then from the pump second, because of how this is piped out. The way that these lines work is that the outlet that is behind a bunch of other ones that are connected like this is going to be the one that comes out first, and all the other ones are going to be blocked until this one is out of water. So, yeah, in one way, in a straight line, out the same way is the best way to set these things up so that they get filled up in order. And then I'm just going to hook it back up to my main water line. The water that I have coming in from any of my reserves right now, I'm just going to kind of route up into my drainage line, like this. And there. So now we kind of have a full place for all this water to go. This water can definitely go in the drainage areas as well. So if we get any extra water, I'm going to send it out. I'm just going to put this on a hydro sensor also to say, like, if our water is getting too full in here, because if we have ice in here and water, it'll eventually melt the ice and it'll turn into more water. And if we don't take care of it this way, it'll start to spill over and make a mess. So let me do this. Duplicants are building a lot of things at once here. Let me wait for them to catch up. It'll just be like a half cycle of time to let them catch up, and then we'll edit on the next part. So give me 1 sec. Okay, duplicants have caught up. Let's keep going on building out some of these things. I do want to put this on mesh tiles, just so that it doesn't block any of the water that we have coming in here. One thing that I always forget when I'm setting this up for the first time is if all these tanks are full, we need a place to actually vent the water. So just going to vent it right there and kind of have it fall into this chamber if all these tanks are filled up. So yeah, that'll set that part up. Let's see here. Now we're going to want to set up our shipments for ice and also our setup for cooling things. So first thing we need to do is fill this up with water. So let's set up a vent right here. And this is only going to run for a little bit. We're going to eventually disconnect this, but basically I'm going to put a hydro sensor right there. That's going to be to tell this to stop sending water if we already are at about this level. For this hydro sensor, we only want to pump it out if this is above 500 kilograms. So this one's going to be if we're below. So I just basically want a water line to exist about right there. So let's grab it from the line that's actually for outbound water. This will get a little bit more cleaned up as we get our pipe settled here. So this is going to look a little messy for right now, but yeah. So I'm going to fill this up with water really quickly. These smart storage bins, I'm going to have them ask for ice, but it's going to ask at a super low priority so that it's not loaded by my duplicants, and rather it's loaded by these auto sweepers. So just going to put an auto sweeper in here as well. And we're going to need to set how much ice we want in here. I don't want 20,000 kilograms. It's way too much. I'd rather have like maybe 1,500. Let's do something like this. This will get the ice to melt a little bit faster. And it will also make it so that when the ice melts, it doesn't melt all in one huge blob and like overfill this. So I just want to ask for ice, and I'm going to put it, like I mentioned, on a super low priority. What we're going to have happen is when we need ice, we need to hook up some automation to these bins. So it puts a green signal out when it's full, which to me says don't ship anything else. So on both of these, we need to put on not gates. If either of them is sending a green signal, that means that one of them is empty. So I'm going to connect them up to an OR gate like that. And then just connect the OR gate up into my conveyor loader like that. So that'll get in there really quickly. The other thing that we're going to want here to help cool things off, I'm just going to build one until this thing is full. But the idea is I'm just going to put a liquid reservoir here. And this liquid reservoir is going to be what we use to cool stuff. So this is what we're finally building up to. We're going to put some polluted water in this tank. And that polluted water is going to get circulated all throughout this room and all throughout this room to help keep things cool over time. So I'm going to need a little bit of time for this all to fill up and for me to fill up the liquid reservoir with some polluted water, which I'll just run in from the line that we have over here, which is where all of our polluted water was sitting. So I will just run a line over there really quickly. Let's do this. Again, this is going to look messy for the time being. We will clean it up over time, but I want to put some polluted water in here. And yeah, and rather than making us wait, well, what happened here? Oh, it's because my systems are all clogged up right now with water, so let me make sure we can actually drain this correctly. Oh, got another conflict of how I built this, so that was my mistake. Water is not flowing like we expected it to, because I had the same problem that I was talking about in a prior video of, like, the lines are getting confused as far as which direction it's supposed to go. So yeah, that should be all good now, and we should start getting our toilets unblocked. But yeah, let me get this all filled up with water. Let me get this filled with water. I'll kind of redo some of these lines here really quickly to keep that flow going, and then I'll edit on the next part. So I'll be right back. Okay, we're just about filled up on our tanks here of polluted water. Let's hook up all of our shipping really quickly. So what I'm going to do with all this shipping is I'm just going to connect the lines that are supposed to be sending this copper into the same ones. And then all they will do is they will get loaded up by the same conveyor loader, dropped into here, and then if we need ice, it'll load it into one of these two bins. If not, we can just sweep it back out and send it into our normal shipping network. So just kind of do something like that. For the actual stuff that needs to come out of here, so out of our freezer, it's just going to drop right there, the conveyor chute. So this auto sweeper will be able to make decisions, and we'll start sending signals that are correct once this is full or not. So both of these are full right now, so they're sending green signals, which sends a red, because we put it on a not gate, to tell this to not turn on. This is only going to turn on when we need more ice, which means that the ice that was in here has been melted. So this should just work out of the box. I don't think there should be any issues with it. You also don't need to fill up your tanks with this polluted water all the way. You can just fill them up about halfway, and then once you get to that point, you're probably going to want to make something to allow this water to kind of share its temperature with the stuff inside the pipes. So get rid of a bunch of these pipes to get them out of the way. So for our cooling setup that's going to be down here in this room, all I'm going to do is just run some pipe. It's better to run it through tiles because that's the best way to cool things down. Then I'll just kind of run it back and forth a few times here. You don't need to be super scientific about it. Actually, I don't want to use a set of igneous rock. That's one of the worst ones to use for this. Let's try granite. Let's put it here and just kind of snake it back and forth to help keep things cool. And then all we're going to do is just have it go from here, kind of circulate in this for just a little bit. Then it'll have to come down. Once it comes out of this tank, I want to use insulated pipe because I want it to not use its temperature until it gets to this room. And it's just going to come back up with more insulated pipe and just return back to the tank. And all that's going to do is just kind of like move the water around enough to share its temperature with this tank of water. I guess we could just kind of like sneak it around like that. It'll share its temperature with the stuff that's inside this water to keep this area cool over time. Just by kind of circulating around with this water that's going to start getting colder and colder as this ice starts to melt. So yeah, that's kind of the idea. Let's make sure that we can get all this going before it's time. So we did have this pause for just a little bit, which probably shouldn't have done. Let me let my duplicants get this all built out, and then I'll edit on the last part to this video, which unfortunately is running a little bit long, but you know, that's just what you get. So, all right, be right back. Okay, finally ready to get all this stuff hooked up. As you can see, the water has started flowing out of our tank of polluted water. That's just going to be to cool off our power room. So as this enters it, it'll start sharing the temperature with these tiles in here. You can see the water is at about 30 C, and these tiles are about 45 C. They will gradually be reduced, and especially as the temperature of this water falls from the ice melting. So yeah, that's the cooling loop that's going for the power room. After this video, I'll create one that kind of loops through here to get that done. Pretty similar concept, just kind of like loop it through in the areas that you need to keep cool. But yeah, we've already seen me do that, so I'll just do that off video, whatever you want to call that. All right, let's get our shipping stuff set up for this. So for the ice, I definitely want to send this through here. So one of them is just going to be for ice. One of them is going to be for anything else that I would really rather have in my base than sitting in here and sharing its temperature. So any metal ores that I find is really the biggest thing I'm interested in. Not super interested in the igneous rock and mafic rock and the other garbage that can be out here. So just that is the only thing that I will be asking for from this one. And I'm going to do them on separate ones just so that they kind of balance themselves out. I'm not only sending one type all the time. Actually, wait. If this is just going to go in the freezer, then I guess it is not going to work that way. I guess I only really need one. Never mind. Okay. We'll just kind of simplify this down. I don't know what I was thinking trying to get both of them going, but yeah, we can just do this with one. So I'll deconstruct these two, and then they're just going to start loading the ice and the copper. So you can put this on automation like we've done before to make sure that it's not wasting power by running all the time. So I'll just put them on little timer sensors. Since there's only one, the timers that I'm going to be using on these is going to be 15 and 40 seconds. Because, like, look, I'm spending this much power just to have it load in, like, 40 kilograms at a time, and this is running constantly. So Yeah, no reason to keep that going. Let's seal this off. So this is effectively going to be our little, like, icebox room. And then we'll set this to... Well, eventually we're going to get rid of all this stuff and totally seal this off so that my duplicants can't get in here and mess around with this. In the meantime, I'm just going to keep them busy digging so that they won't be tempted to do that errand, which is a really, like, not worthwhile errand for them to be spending their time on. So yeah, we've got stuff flowing in here. Let's set all the stuff, basically everything that's in here I'm going to want to sweep out. And then if it's copper, it'll just get dropped on the ground and it'll get swept into here. So we want to sweep everything out of here except for liquefiables. So yeah, there's already some igneous rock on the ground, whatever. So that's pretty much it. I mean, when these are going to be requesting more ice, which I could just kind of fake it. Here, let me act like there's nothing in here. Now this is going to complain that there is not what we want in there, and it's going to activate our conveyor loader, and the conveyor loader is going to start sending ice down until this gets filled up with ice again. So if I were to set this back to ice, the auto super is going to be like, oh, I need to put ice in here. And then as soon as it does, it'll turn this back off so that we're no longer sending any more ice. There will be some sitting on the ground here, but that's totally fine. It'll just help us cool this down a little bit faster. But yeah, that's pretty much the idea for the whole cooling loop for this stage of the game. And hopefully you should see the temperature change in here pretty quickly. Once your water starts to cool down and once the ice starts to melt. So we'll get there. I'll add another cooling line here. Then we're going to talk about getting the rest of the water all cleaned up. So it's apparently my doorbell. Going to talk about getting all the rest of the water cleaned up here. And I'm just going to be pumping it all into my system. So I'm going to get rid of this pool and kind of just send it all in the same place. Then we're going to start grabbing these. One of them is totally frozen over. We're going to grab this as well, and we're going to start adding some new water into our network. But yeah, we'll talk about that next time. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a good one. See you soon.